If you're enjoying the Heath Geeks Book Club podcast, we'd appreciate if you hit the subscribe button, leave a like, rating, or review, whichever your preferred podcatcher platform allows.
This edition of our podcast is brought to you by 360 Health and Well Balanced Nutrition.
Welcome to the Heath Geeks Book Club podcast. Listen in as Kristen Norton and Eleanor Russell review all those great health and wellness books you've been wanting to read or you have read and want to talk about. Here's Kristen and Eleanor.
Hey everybody, Kristen here and Eleanor too.
Oh yeah, am I here? No, I need another sip of coffee, I guess. Yeah, and it's pretty here in the Carolinas. This is the best time of the year if you don't have allergies. It's gorgeous here. Mm-hmm. Springtime is upon us.
And I've got a challenge for you listeners out there. I'm going to read this open letter and see if you can try to guess what we're going to talk about today. All right. This is a letter, and it says, I still remember the first time we met. You were new and glorious. You are amazing. I mean, literally. Not only do you allow me to travel across time and space, but I'm amazed by how many nights I've stayed up 3 hours past my bedtime staring at you. Thanks to you, I never need to worry about being alone. Anytime I'm anxious or upset, you offer a game or news feed or viral panda video to distract me from my feelings. These days, I can't even remember the last time I was bored. And that's why it's so hard for me to tell you that we need to break up.
Oh, I'm so heartbroken.
So those were the cliff notes from this open letter. Can you guess what we're talking about? Drum roll, please.
Drum rolls? Oh.
I don't have that on here.
We're talking about how to break up with your phone.
Ooh,
This
ouch.
book is by Catherine Price. And
You know who she is?
who is she?
Oh, God. Well, let me tell you who she is.
Please do.
Yeah, and she is about 44 years old, so she's, in my estimation, a whippersnapper. But she's a award-winning writer and science journalist whose work has appeared in publications like The Best American Science Writing, The New York Times, Washington Post Magazine, Los Angeles Times, San Francisco Chronicle, and she's written books. Vitamania, How Vitamins Revolutionize the Way We Think About Food, 101 Places Not to See Before You Die, and Mindfulness, A Journey. She is educated at Yale and Berkeley and is a science journalist and does a really good job of getting into the depth of understanding the ideas she's putting forward. I watched a YouTube with her because Kristen has been doing some of that kind of things, and I think, I should do that too. Did you, in this instance, look her up?
Yes, I've seen a TED Talk she's done, and I think that's on a new book.
Yes, I think it is too. Yeah, her motto is, "I help people scroll less, live more, and have fun." And so her next book is about fun, and I think this society needs to focus on that a little bit. So,
but this particular book is about kind of her journey of how she noticed she was addicted to her phone, and then she dove into the research of how phones are addictive, what they do to us, how they pull us in. And that's the first part of her book.
Yeah, she's really coming to a conclusion that we have a society problem. It's a societal addiction, which is kind of a new idea. And to get her message out, she's been a TED Talk speaker. Mm-hmm. But this publishing house that published her stuff is called a 10-Speed Press, and they started in like 1971, but then they were bought by Random House in 2009, and they're part of the Crown Publishing Group, so they're a pretty substantial publishing house, and they look for new authors who are authorities and tastemakers, and they've published stuff like I ran into back in the early 70s, or I guess early 80s, What Color's Your Parachute? A lot of us that were in career changes used that book in that decade. It's a really helpful book. Anybody know Marie Kondo and Tidying Up? They published her. And they published one of my favorite cookbooks, and I think Tim may or may not know about this one, the Moosewood Cookbook.
I don't know that.
Oh,
I've heard of this.
Oh, I have a copy. Oh, it's great. So anyway, when I learned that, I thought, oh, how wonderful it is that there's a publishing group out there that's looking for her and looking for other authors that have something really important to say to us, but maybe not, established authors yet.
Right.
So I think and how did we find this book? Why did we decide to read it?
Oh, I can't remember.
I couldn't either. And I'll tell you, it was serendipity for me because every equinox I do a raw food, health food cleanse.
That's right.
And the last 2 times I've done it, I said, I'm doing a digital cleanse at the same time. And so 6 months ago or a year ago, whenever I did the first time, I lasted 2 days and I had to get into my social media. I couldn't go 7 days. I was saying, oh, who's had a birthday? Who's done that? I need to say something to them. I need to respond because they want to hear from me, right? I'm not sure they do. But that idea of engagement on social media and that anxiety it produces, fear of missing out, FOMO. Mm-hmm. Well, anyway, this year when I did it, I did the whole 7 days, no problem. And I said, the world will go on. People will have their birthdays and anniversaries, and they'll be okay if they don't hear from me. And now I'm not really back in there very much. And there's a lot of pressure on me as a wellness business to be actively engaged in social media.
Well, I think that's why this came up, because
Okay.
I think I had heard of this book before, and then we've had conversations about the books we're reading and how they tell us to disconnect, and, disconnection is good for creativity. It's better for our sleep, which we've read about, and then we read in our business books, not on this podcast, but how we're supposed to be engaged and all this stuff. So both of us have felt this pull, this love-hate relationship with social media.
Oh, I hate social media. I do. I hate it.
Yeah.
Good. Well, I think that may be a healthy sign.
Yeah. I mean, I use the Messenger. I go on Facebook just so I don't have to type stuff on my phone, but I see.
You don't look the feed, you don't scroll?
I don't scroll. I mean, every once in a while, it's like if I see something that's there, I'll look and see what it is. Okay. And I move on. I just don't like being there. I don't like posting on it.
Well, you agree with the author, Catherine Price says social media sucks.
Well, let me tell you, and we're going to maybe take 2 episodes on this book because she's divided it into 2 parts that we thought were kind of natural break. The first part is in response to her letter where she's talking about wake up. And she said, I intend to freak you out in this section of the book. And then the second part is the how to do the breakup. And she, very early in this discussion, mentions this Dr. Greenfield who has a smartphone compulsion test. Did you take it, Kristen?
Well, it's a list, or is it online?
Well, you can go in here and you just evidently you might not have done it. I would encourage everybody to do this
The
thing.
15 questions?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And of course, as she says, everybody scores.
Well, let me tell you what happened to me. So you go and you answer these prompts and say, is this me or not? Like, do I use the phone at night? Do I scroll? Blah, blah, blah. And if you have 1 or 2 of those 15, you're sort of normal. If you have 3 to 4, you're borderline problematic. If you have 5 of them, you're problematic. If you have more than 8, you need to see a psychologist, psychiatrist, or a behavioral counselor because you have
behavioral addiction.
Yeah. Well, I was like way over 8. So I am the personality. I'm very visual, and I like this thing, and I can get in there and be gone. And I hate admitting it because I'm a really smart person, so I think.
Well, you're not alone. I scored super high on this.
Well, that's what they said.
Yeah.
And that was the joke about the whole thing. It's like nobody scores 1 to 2 except for maybe Tim. So, Tim, you might need, you could take that little inventory and see where you score.
Oh, I'm sure I'm pretty high. Even though I hate it, I still use it.
Oh, well.
You know how some of the books you're like, there's something in me that is bothered by this. Well, that's how I felt during this book. And I'm like, oh, that's how I know that I need to be reading and doing this.
Yeah. So I think we're going to recommend this book. I mean,
yeah.
Yeah. And they said you can give this as a gift. So you know what? Tim has helped us figure out how to get you access to these books on our website. You can order the book. Tell us, Tim.
So on the website, thehealthgeekspodcast.com, the show notes, the episodes are broken up into posts. Each post has the book in it, and if you click on that link, it will take you to, and yes, we have to let you know it's an affiliate link. It is an affiliate link through Amazon where you can buy the book.
But buying the book through our affiliate link can help us
That's right.
continue to do these podcasts.
Yes, because this is not cheap, and we want to continue to bring podcasts and inspiration to you, and it helps us tremendously whenever you purchase. If we are picking your interest, then you should buy your books
from us.
And it would help us bring you more books to find out about.
Right.
So any book that we've reviewed on the podcast, you can go to the healthgeekspodcast.com and buy it through that.
Yeah, make it simple for you. We're just trying to help in every way we can. But what she was saying is you can gift this book to people because you care about them. And I'm thinking I'm buying some extra copies as gifts. And then they said you can also, if you get one as a gift, give it back to the person because they probably need to read the book if they haven't read it. So anyway, she had a lot of fun. Yeah.
So what's the test called that you take?
Dr. Greenfield's Smartphone Compulsion Test. And it's on page 15 or page 5 of the book. I mean, she just starts right out there saying, look, you do need to read this book because this is you. We're talking about you. And then she goes and organizes the book in that first part to all sorts of dimensions of what is going on, who is using our brain, and what's happening to it. And there are all sorts of new words. So she also has a glossary in this book. And Tim, I think you'll like some of these new words.
Oh, I learned a couple new words.
You tell me the ones you learned.
Phubbing.
Yes, I love that. I've used it a lot.
Phubbing?
Yeah.
Anybody know what phubbing means?
I'm doing it right now to Tim.
So it's when you're having a conversation, and in the middle of that conversation, someone checks their phone. And it's so common that you probably don't even notice it, especially if you're millennial or younger.
Well, they call them the iGens. Mm-hmm. That was a new one for me.
iGens.
Yeah,
okay.
and the iGen is people that have grown up with smartphones.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
yeah.
generation, well, the millennials and all that. Well, now there's the iGens. And they're on the brink of the worst mental health crisis in decades, according to her. What about fasting?
Oh, that was a good one. Explain what fasting
That's
is.
PHAST. That's a phone fast, which is what I did on my detox. So I fasted. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Just as sometimes it's recommended in diet, it's recommended in phone usage.
And sort of a regular routine of it. You know, not just once and done, but like kind of intersperse those fasts along the way, and you might have a better go of it. What about nomophobia?
Why don't I remember that one?
That's the fear of being without your phone.
Oh.
I certainly have that. My life is in that phone.
Huh? What do you feel like when you don't have it?
Nervous, anxious, itchy, irritable.
Do you go find it then?
Oh, yeah. I've driven all the way home to get it.
Now,
I cannot stand it not being with me because you never know what's going to happen.
That's right.
Isn't it weird? I have, sometimes I have that kind of feeling that Tim just described, and sometimes I have this like euphoric freedom. Like nobody can reach me. I am free. Mm-hmm. Try to get a hold of me. You can't.
Just dare you. I dare you. Well, one of the things that I would say I was missing in this book, I think, I got a sense, she's a 44-year-old, as I mentioned. She's married. She has kids. And a lot of her talking was to people who live with people. I didn't see a discussion really about the single livers other than the isolation conversation, but that isolation was in the midst of being with people. So
that's interesting, right? Because when you're alone, you might reach for that for the connection.
Exactly.
Piece.
And also there's a security piece, I think, for independent livers. If you fall over and, you know, the back 40 or whatever, and you don't have some way to say, hey, I'm down here, it can create that anxiety that Tim's talking about. Mm-hmm. Although, you know, generations went along without having that protection. So we live in a fear society where fear permeates so much of what we do, like something bad's going to happen, so I need to be prepared for it. Mm-hmm. And anyway, so I think she could have had a little more discussion about security issues.
So we know I just took the test.
Oh, how'd you score?
I scored a 13 out of 15.
Yeah, there you go. Hello, you're in the club.
Welcome to
in
the
club. Was it revealing? I mean, that she even thought to ask you the questions?
No, it's,
You knew this.
yeah.
Okay, well, let's address it then. Here's what they're doing to us. They have all sorts of tricky things in here. Like on page 21, they talk about, while we shouldn't be alarmist, Steve Jobs, was right. Smartphones are really different. They're different in a lot of good ways, obviously, and that's why we love them, right? But smartphones also talk back to us. They nag us. They disturb us when we're working. They demand our attention and reward us when we give it to them. Smartphones engage in disruptive behavior that have traditionally been performed only by extremely annoying people. What's more, they give us access to the entire internet, and unlike previous technologies, we keep them near at all times. The thing about extremely annoying people...
That cracked me up.
And
I
we
wrote
keep
that
this thing
quote
right
down.
next to it.
So our phone can be this really annoying person, and it is, right? All these random notifications at different times, like, hey, look at me, look at me, look at me.
How about reading the book? Did you look at your phone?
When I was reading the book, sometimes...
Or did you read it on your phone?
No. I had the actual copy, and there was a time when I was outside reading it, and she was like, do you have your phone right now? And I'm like, no, actually, it's charging in the other room. But I do feel a little anxious about that.
Yeah, I have I cannot have tokens on my phone. Tokens are the numbers that tell you how many notifications that are new that you've
You
not
turned
read.
those off. Good. Okay.
No, I don't turn them off. I just can't have them, so I have to go check it if there's one there. If there's you have unread notifications about it, or there are new things,
You go
I have
clear
to go
them.
check it. I have to clear it.
Well, that's good.
As my
business
wife
practice.
has, 30,000 unread Gmail emails, and I have 0. Every email gets at least deleted.
Well, do you all know who Dave Allen is? He wrote Getting Things Done in the business literature. He's written some really good books. And what you're doing there is one of the recommendations. He says clear it out each day, and then you don't have that burden of, I haven't gotten it done. So in a way, and you're a professional businessman, you got to check this stuff because that's the way people are sending you, are we coming to do a podcast or
Well,
not?
I'm a digital media
Man.
business owner and man, but
Man.
but so I have to have digital media with me. I have to, as I say, if I'm awake, I'm working. So I have to have all my stuff around.
Did
You
you
might
did
need
you listen to
go
Set
back
Boundaries?
and listen to that podcast on boundaries we did.
Oh, my boundaries. I have no boundaries.
Oh, this is why we have Tim in the studio with us, because Kristen and I feel like he's our guinea pig.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm
If
always
we can
that.
help this man in any small way lead a healthy life, we're doing something good, right?
Right. Well, she calls out that, an excuse she often hears, right, is that I need it for work. So she's like, okay, let's just talk about your personal use of this. Let's just start with your personal use of your phone and your relationship with it. And she just says that breaking up with our phone doesn't mean that we have to get rid of it, which I appreciated, but it's just how addicted we are to it. And, where you just read that quote, I also made a note that further down she says, many technology chief executives strictly limit their children's screen time, including Bill and Melinda Gates and Steve Jobs, because they know they're designed to be addictive.
Yep. And there is a quote, and there's another one in here that we'll run across, and I'll bring it up when we get there, but something to the effect of what drug dealers do. They say you don't consume your product. You sell it.
You do not get high on your own supply.
That's it. That's the quote. It's in the book. Yeah, and that's frightening, isn't it?
It is.
Because, that thing about security, again, that's fear society that we're in America, and I'm sure around the world, maybe. parents are handing these things to very small children, and maybe putting parental controls on them or not.
Yeah, and I've heard on my children's bus that their kids looking through TikTok, and I'm like, that makes me so nervous, because that right there is addicting, and you don't know what you're going to find. But phone apps are designed to be addicting, but they call it something else. They call it user engagement.
Oh, yeah.
Right? And that's what pays the bills, because our eyes and our attention are the product, right? Because we're not paying for it, but the advertisement companies are wanting our eyes and our engagement. So these executives are making sure they pull out all the stops so that we keep looking at our phones, stay engaged longer, whether it's good for us or not.
Right. They say that every moment of attention we spend scrolling through social media is attention spent making money for someone else.
Exactly.
And what's being sold is our attention, and that's the most valuable thing we have. There's another area in here where they're talking about phones and most apps are deliberately designed without stopping cues. When you eat, you get a signal, I'm full,
right,
and you stop eating. So there's the stop cue, but these stopping cues alert us when we've had enough, which is why it's so easy to accidentally binge on this social media, which is what I've described about my habits. I can just kind of be wanting to sit down and chill for a minute, and there's the phone, which all three of us have our phones on the table right now. I'll pick it up and then just innocently cook something, and then an hour's gone. I've been sitting there zoned out.
Yeah.
Giving my attention away.
On accident.
Oh,
I'm like,
yeah.
I pick it up for some reason, and then I forget what that reason is, do all the other things on it.
Oh, yeah.
And then an hour's gone, and I'm like, well, dang
Because
it.
all these notifications, I pick it up for one thing, I'm like, there's something here I need to check. And then I put it down, oh, crap, I didn't check what I picked it up for.
Exactly.
So they say we don't realize that technology designers deliberately manipulate our dopamine responses to make it extremely difficult for us to stop using their products. This is known as brain hacking. This is essentially behavioral design based on brain chemistry, and once you know how to recognize its signs, you'll see it all over your phone. Is that disturbing to anybody else? Mm-hmm. Brain hacking.
I like this chapter 3, The Tricks of the Trade.
Okay.
And there's a quote that starts with an ex-Google employee who says, "Never before in history have the decisions of a handful of designers, mostly men, white, living in San Francisco, aged 25 to 35.
Ooh, that's frightening right there.
Working at 3 companies had so much impact on how millions of people around the world spend their attention." So in chapter 3, she just goes over tricks of the trade and what these executives know about behavior.
Charles Duhigg and the habit loop, which we've run into before, and James Clear talked about it. Mm-hmm. The cue, the response, and the reward.
Yes. And so first, we are novelty junkies, right? One of the reasons we're drawn to our phones is that we don't know what we're gonna find.
Well, I love something new.
I
Show me
too.
something new.
On Instagram, maybe. Oh, what's gonna pop up? Because it's so random, right? You don't know what the algorithm is going to give you. Or maybe you have a new email. And so when you're bored, novelty, let's see what's going on. That I like this. We are toddlers. Mm-hmm. Do you remember that?
Yeah, the doorbell rings. Ding! I'm over there. It's like, squirrel.
Well, we're distracted, but this was interesting. Flip a switch on the wall and a light goes on. Press a button and a doorbell rings. Express even the slightest interest in an electrical outlet, an adult will come running. Mm-hmm. It's a trait we never outgrow. No matter what age we are, we really love getting reactions to things that we do. Mm-hmm. In psychology, these reactions are called reinforcements, and more reinforcements we get when we do something, the more likely we are to do it again.
So podcast audience, keep listening to us because we need some reinforcements.
Yes. And so sometimes when you're feeling down or like you don't have any positive reinforcements in life, you can find yourself looking for them on your phone. social media likes or whatever it is. I think that's one of my downfalls is like, ooh, who liked one of my posts?
Yeah, 2 people.
Yeah,
No, not for you. You
No,
get better reactions than I do. It's like I think it's interesting, but nobody else does. That thing about boredom, trying to avoid it. You have a couple other things, but later in that chapter, I think they talk about being afraid of our minds. So keep going.
Yeah. Well, let me go in order. So we find inconsistency irresistible. So this was a topic that we went over in Brainwash several podcasts back about how there is a rhyme and reason to how the notifications pop up, right? They're not on a schedule of any sort, and that is what gets us.
Yeah, and they even know enough about us to batch them. They make us wait just that amount of time that we're still in there, and then they give us 2 or 3 of them.
You're talking about Facebook?
We're talking about
Any
these
of
designers,
those.
the algorithm writers.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was deep for me. I'm like, oh, they even go to that extent where they're playing with us a little bit. Like, if I hide
Not a
these
little
likes
bit,
for
a
a
lot.
little, if I hide
Because-
these likes and give them at just the right time, the dopamine hit is even higher and they stay engaged longer.
They'll be on. We have them. We have you.
So we hate feeling anxious. And so we reach for our phones, even though our phones make us anxious. It's a cycle. But that's where the FOMO comes in, right? Where we have this fear of missing out, which is not to be confused with the newer term, JOMO, the joy of missing out.
I don't get it.
The joy of missing out is what you get when you break up with your phone and you can put it away and you have that freedom I was talking about earlier. Like, nobody can reach me. I'm experiencing the joy of just being present in my life. So we want to be loved.
On that one, they're talking about the like buttons, and a post with 0 likes wasn't just privately painful, but it's also kind of public condemnation. And so putting all these things together, it makes us sense that spending a lot of time on social media could be associated with depression and lower self-esteem. And we see that a lot in our young children.
Especially in teenagers, right? Which is super scary.
Yeah, it says we're deliberately choosing to relive the worst parts of middle school.
Right? Because like when you said, when you only get 2 likes,
That's
it's
what
like,
I said. Yeah, it's like, I thought it was interesting and nobody else did, so I must really be just dumb.
And the thing is
Nobody
it's
likes
not
me.
about what they saw.
No.
It just could be holding it back from other people seeing it.
Exactly.
That's what the algorithm kicks in, and it's a pain in the backside.
Yeah, and that's why you have to have more followers, and then these people that are influencers.
Yeah.
And then they get the ad spaces, and then they monetize their influencing.
And then what's frustrating from a health geek's perspective is that they've unlocked this popularity code, and so they can say whatever they want, no matter how crazy in the health world, and people buy it.
Right.
Drives me bananas.
The danger of that one is it's terrifying to me. It's when you put this together with Facebook's ability to target ads, in this example in the form of fake news stories to the people who are most likely to click on and share them, we end up in a situation where the stories that show up in my news feed might be completely different from those that show up in your news feed, and where none of them have been vetted to make sure they reflect any version of reality. This happens. The more this happens, the more we risk creating a society in which we no longer have a shared definition of the truth.
Oh,
And that, to me, I think I see evidence of that already.
I do too.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, and once you understand you're being manipulated, how do we get out of the loop of being manipulated? I mean, because they know we're lazy. We know, we want to be loved. We like inconsistencies. I mean, they've figured us out.
And we all we love being special,
Yeah.
precious snowflakes.
Oh, yeah.
I could see it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. That's one title in here.
Yeah.
And we fear our own minds, right? We're never alone with our own thoughts because that's scary. So I can totally see why it's the generation, they're saying, is in risk of a mental health crisis because
Yeah.
of all these things.
Yeah. But you and I are at risk, too.
Oh, yeah. We all
because
are.
of multitasking. We think we can do that. And what's ending up, we're not even able to do a single task because we fractured our brains so much. With the author, the reason I think she wrote the book was she noticed herself having a shorter attention span, weaker memory, and her focus was flickering. Mm-hmm. And she tried to figure out why, and this is where she landed.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, that's just a scratch on the surface of part one, right? She goes into lots of things that we haven't talked about, like stress, sleep,
well, we can do that
satisfaction.
in another episode. What do you say?
Sounds good.
Who are you?
I'm Kristen Norton of Well Balanced Nutrition, one of 3 registered dietitians who can help you implement healthy eating habits, have a healthy relationship with food, and improve your energy levels. Give us a call or sign up for a free clarity call by visiting our website at wellbalancednutrition.com.
And I'm Eleanor Russell at 360health4u.com. And I like to help people kind of assess their lifestyle and see what they're doing. And I'm an educator, so I like to share a lot of education to help people direct their choices to a healthier outcome, longer longevity that's happy, vital. So being alive as long as you live sounds like fun to me. If it is to you, check out my website.
Don't forget, if you are listening to this and you're like, wow, I wish I had this book, you can go to the healthgeekspodcast.com and go to the episode for this and buy the book from there. It would help us out tremendously. Thank you.
Till next time.
Bye.
And opinions stated in this podcast are solely those of the contributors and are not necessarily those of our distributors or hosting company. This podcast is copyrighted, and no part can be reproduced without the express written consent of Kristen and Eleanor.